All right. Well, I thought I would come on here live and just kind of recap a little bit of what happened this last week. Because I know if you're like me, sometimes, I see something on social media and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch or I'm going to look at that later. And then I try to go back and I can't find it, right? Because it's like gone. I don't know where it goes, but it goes into like this, I don't know, social media hell. I don't know whatever you call it, right? You can't find it. So just wanted to recap a little bit about some of the things that I put out this week in case you missed it before. So, just going to go through and talk a little bit about some of the different topics and where you can actually go. Because one thing that I have done with the new jasonmefford.com is I've been putting more and more, pretty much everything that I do, I'm putting out there so that there's one place where you can come back to and always be able to find stuff. So when you hit the page, you can look around, but on one of the parts there, you can hit on the posts in the menu, and you'll be able to see a lot of the different things that I've talked about this last week. So let me just go through and start giving a little bit of a recap. If you're here with me live, welcome, and let me know you're here. If you have questions or anything, put stuff in the comments because I've got a few minutes now and I'm just going to go through this. So one of the first things is just want to talk about, we had a Fire and Earth podcast episode that dropped actually the end of last week called It's a Practice, Not a Perfect with Holly Duckworth. And so that was one where Kathy Groover and myself, we actually do a podcast together called Fire and Earth Podcast. And it's one where we were talking about mindfulness because Holly is an expert on mindfulness. And one thing, from that, you can kind of tell from the title, but I'll just let you know. Mindfulness is something that you have to practice every day, and we never do it perfect. And so that's why it's a practice, not a perfect. And so in there, again, if you're a little new to what mindfulness actually is, check that out because, again, we get into that. We talk about actually what it is and some different ways to do that. Now, another one that I did, jamming podcast, actually, I think this was the very end of last week as well, was called Turn the Page. So Turn the Page is actually a song from Bob Seger that I've been thinking about a lot. It's been on my mind. And so I did a whole podcast episode about that because really, regardless of what happens every day, every week, every year, every day we get up, we have an opportunity to literally turn the page and start writing a new story. And so that's a lot of kind of what that episode is about is, sometimes it's just time to turn the page. But we talked about, like we do on most of the podcasts, a lot of other stuff as well, like, do you like the Bob Seger version or do you like the Metallica version better? I don't know. I'll let you decide, right? Let me know if you which one of those you like better. The next one we did was actually the beginning of this week, an episode called I Like You Just the Way You Are. Okay. And that is a reminder from one of my heroes. Whoops, let me get it over here. Right. There we go. Mr. Rogers, was famous for saying that and reminding us that I like you just the way you are. Now, I did a whole episode on that because, one of these times every so often I get a wild hair up my ass and I just like start typing. And I did that a couple of weeks ago and created a newsletter on LinkedIn called I Like You Just the Way You Are. And started a new newsletter over there called Being Uniquely You. And the surprising thing was about 3,000 people signed up in about the first week to read that. And so thought, hey, if, the fact that 3,000 people are saying, I want to read that, this resonates with me, I like it, decided I'd do a whole podcast episode on it because of that. Now, what you'll notice is in the comments in the, whatever you call it at the top of this, right, in the social media thing, you should see links to all of these as well. So that way, again, and you can go directly to the place on my website where that information is. So like I said, I did an episode on I Like You Just the Way You Are. And, because of that, one of the reasons behind that is so much of the time we get told that we're a little different, or we're just not, we just don't have what it takes, right? And my thought is, I don't think that's what Mr. Rogers would tell us. And I don't think that's what I want to hear. I don't think that's what you need to hear either, is that more of us need to be told, you know what, you're perfect just the way you are. I like you just the way you are. You're special just because the way you are. And in fact, the fact that you are special means that only you can do certain things. Only you can touch certain people in this world as well. So that's kind of what that episode was about. I did a follow up on that being uniquely you. So did another newsletter on that called "It's Such a Good Feeling to Know You're Alive." Again, if you know Mr. Rogers, that's another thing that he always used to say. And, kind of the whole idea there that, what, I am grateful that for every day that I get to wake up, turn the page, and start again. And so I want you to know as well that it really is such a good feeling to know you're alive. And we get in and talk a little bit more about that, about how to be grateful as well in that newsletter that I did. Again, it's on my webpage as well. But there's also a video that goes along with that. So I actually recorded a live video that talked a little bit more about that topic as well. And you can also find that on the webpage. So I put YouTube embed links in most of the posts as well, if there's a video that happens to go along with it. I do send out what's called a VIP newsletter. So if you're interested in doing that, again, you can find the links for that on my website. That's where I send out, emails to people once a week because I think you're a very important person. I think you should be treated like a very important person. So that's why I have a VIP newsletter. And so in that one, I talked a little bit more about it's time to turn the page. That a lot of times we stay stuck and we regret or are keeping ourselves in the past, where actually, again, really, it's time to turn the page, just like I talked about on that podcast episode before. That's out there as well. Now, for those of you that are kind of in the internal audit space, if you're studying for the CIA exam, which I've helped a lot of people pass that exam and get that professional certification, I also did a video this week about, I called it "The CIA Exam Costs You Over $10,000." And it's really more of kind of a public service announcement, because a lot of people get into this and they don't realize that it's going to take them years and literally thousands of dollars before they're done with it. And so I did this kind of public service announcement video on that, because the sad thing is, people will come to me often after they failed these exams over and over and over again. They have a really low self-esteem at that point, right? Because they feel like, I'm a failure because I can't pass these goddamn tests. Okay. And a lot of times they're spending thousands of dollars without even realizing it, because they're getting nickeled and dimed, a couple $100 here, $500 there. And a lot of people end up waking up 2 or 3 years later and realize they've dropped a lot of money and they've spent a lot of time away from their friends and family trying to study for this exam, and then they give up. And so, again, that's why it's really kind of a public service announcement, because a lot of times people don't know actually how much time they're actually spending or what they're totally investing on it. In fact, what's really interesting, I had somebody on social media that kind of went off on me about it, of, you can't really consider your time as part of the cost. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? That's like decision making analysis 101. Excuse me. You have to think about the time that you put in, because obviously your time is valuable, right? Would you rather be studying for an exam that you're not going to pass anyway, or would you rather spend that time with your friends and family? Because ultimately, time is actually more valuable than money. But the problem is, again, most of us don't actually value our time, and we don't consider that in our decision-making processes. So that was kind of what that one was about. Also we had another Fire and Earth episode called "Life is Not a Transaction" with Allie Edwards. And that was an interesting episode because Allie is a realtor. In a former life, I used to be a realtor as well. So kind of understood that, but it's interesting. And, really a lot of what kind of came up from that is, a lot of our life, we end up treating people like transactions. Like, I want to buy a house. You're a realtor. You can fill out the papers for me. Just buy the house for me. And we never actually invest or create a relationship with people. And it's not just in real estate. I mean, think about this in a lot of the different things that we do in our life. Are you treating people like they're a transaction, treating them like they're a number, or are you actually developing a relationship with another human being? And again, it's one of those where I have to take a pause every so often and think, you know what, I didn't really treat that person maybe the way I should have, as a human being. And so I'm working on all of these things as well, to where we we need to start thinking more about that. We need to start thinking more about the relationship and the connection that we're making with other people, and not just want them for something, right? And so again, this could even be, if you're selling something, are you looking at the person on the other side as just a transaction, a sale, or are you actually looking at them as a person that you're providing, or offering a service to? There's a big difference in the intention between those two different ways of looking at it. And I think what's sad is so much of the time, we end up treating people like a transaction, and then we wonder why we have relationship issues. Surprise, right? If you treat somebody like a number, if you treat somebody like a transaction, of course you don't have a relationship with them. And so when you have issues with those people, it's not a surprise. But what floors me is people are always surprised when, how come this person doesn't like me? Well, they probably don't like you because all you're doing is asking them for something. You're not actually doing anything for them. You're a taker. You're not a giver. You're just taking from them, and you're never really establishing or creating a relationship with them. So we get into more on that in that episode as well. And then finally, the one that came out yesterday was going to where the problem was created with Ewelina Szczeblewska. I think I said that correctly this time. I flubbed it up on the podcast. Polish names are always difficult for me to pronounce. But anyway, you just have to pronounce them. You can't look at them because looking at them screws you up. But Ewelina is actually, she's a hypnotherapist. And one of the things that we got into talking about is, a lot of times we feel like we're kind of stuck where we are and we want to change, but we don't know how to change. And the problem is a lot of times it's because there's something subconsciously that is holding us back and we don't know what it is. Consciously, we can't think our way through it. And so using something like hypnosis is a way to be able to get at and reprogram subconsciously what's holding you back. And so she shared several different experiences with it. Interesting, because I recorded that with her a little while ago. But even yesterday, I was talking to somebody and she was expressing a fear like I have of drowning. I had a couple of incidents where I almost drowned in the water, I'm not a very strong swimmer, and a couple of times where I actually almost drowned and died. And so obviously it's when things like that happen to you, right? It programs certain things in you subconsciously that you don't even realize. And sometimes those things show up in other places that you wouldn't anticipate. So it was that way with this person that I was talking to. She had a similar experience to me and is afraid of trying new things or doing things different. Well, maybe there's some things like that kind of trauma that went along with almost drowning. And until she gets to what's really behind it, right, it's going to be hard for her to be able to figure out what it is, because you can't consciously figure out something that's in your subconscious. You can think about it all day. You can think about it all day, every day for the whole day, and you're never going to figure it out, because you can only figure it out if you cross over into the subconscious area and actually see what it is. So those were some of the things that we kind of talked about this week. Some different things that I put out there as new content this week. Did a couple of lives like this as well. And so again, sometimes I'll try to put these on my website so it's easy for you to find them later. Because I know things like live videos, you see them kind of in your screen, but if you don't click on them right away, they go away and you don't know where they are. So if you see something like that coming from me and you're like, hey, I really want to see that, know that I'm always streaming over to YouTube. So you can always go over to my YouTube channel and should be able to find it there. But also I put copies and embed a lot of those videos on my website as well. So it's easy for you to go back and find it. There's even a search bar. You can filter by different topics to be able to find stuff easier. So that's really kind of what I wanted to talk about today and come on here live for. So if anybody's on live and want to kind of keep talking, let me know that you're here. If you have any questions or you want me to get into any more of the details of kind of what we've been talking about, obviously you can get the details by going and listening to the podcast. Another thing about my website is, podcasts are usually audio, but you can also see the video options over on my website as well. So you have the choice of either listening to the audio or watching the video. And the reason I do that is I know a lot of people would prefer to see it, right? It's activating more of our senses. It's a better way for us to learn. And, honestly, would you rather listen to an audio book or would you rather watch the movie about it? Everybody's different, right? But some people would prefer to just kind of get the audio. Other people would like to see the video. So I think it's good to have choices. So that's why I'm giving everybody choices, right? So, all right. So with that, again, if anybody's on with me and has any questions or wants me to talk about anything more, I do have a few more questions here. You can tell that I'm talking to myself, right? Anyway, hopefully that made you laugh anyway. But like I said, because I can hang out here for another minute or two before I have to get on, because I've got some new podcasts I got to record. So you have some new content this next week as well. So with that, not seeing any comments coming through, so I'm going to close up for today. But again, a lot of good stuff that's out there. And I just want you to remember, I like you just the way you are. Lots of people like you just the way you are. Don't be afraid to be who you are and show up. In fact, one of the episodes I'm probably going to record now is going to be something like "Let Your Freak Flag Fly," or I don't know. It's what the title is going to be, but really that point that you know what, it's all right to be uniquely you. In fact, who else are you going to be? Honestly, right? Is if you're not going to be yourself, then who else are you going to be? Because chances are people are going to judge you. People might not like you, regardless of what you do. So even when you're trying to please other people and you're trying to be the person you think that they want you to be, there's going to be people out there that don't really like you. So you might as well be yourself and avoid a lot of the guilt and the shame and other stuff that goes along with pretending to be somebody that you're not, right? And anyway, there's more on that in some of the different things that I talked about today. So again, they should be links in the copy above wherever you're watching this. And if not, like I said, you can always go over to jasonmefford.com and look at the post area and be able to get more information. So with that, I hope you had a great week. I had a great week. And I'm looking forward to this next week as well. Looking forward to some football tomorrow too. So we're coming down to the end on American football. So we've got a couple more games to go. and then football's going to be over, and I'm going to be kind of bored and have to watch baseball again. So anyway, hope you have a great weekend, and of course there'll be more new content next week, as there always is. And I'll see you where I see you.